Education and the pursuit of knowledge has been for centuries a continuous force throughout human history. From hunting game to discovering the physical laws that govern us, humans have continuously, intentionally or unintentionally, learned. Hi, my name is Daniel Gonzalez, and today we will delve into the future of education through the lens of the 20th century. Technologies in education have constantly been influenced by the forces that surround it, from demographics to religion and culture. For example, the baby boomers of the 1950s, teens in the shadows of American success in World War II, ended up overcrowding schools. Enter a solution: the high-tech school of tomorrow, designed to optimize space in a classroom environment. With so many baby boomers, futurists of the time began to challenge the idea of a classroom setting as the only place of learning. The computer desk was supposed to make classrooms extinct, with a TV instructor, test questions, microphones, and an electronic notebook all in the comfort of your home. But what did the education of the future look like before the war? According to a newspaper clipping from 1912, future public schools were going to be characterized by being in a centralized location, and anyone who wanted to learn, especially in the countryside, had to find a way to drive there. This comes to no surprise, as the consolidation of many systems, like the automobile, was evident in the beginning of the century, and education obviously wasn't the exception. An example of how students were going to get to school on time in the future were gyroscopic cars. These cars exemplify how education is much more than learning. It is also an enormous social technical system. It is comprised of many facets, from physical spaces and theories on how people learn, to detailed teacher lesson plans and individual school regulations. Let's skip ahead in time to this image from 1981, in which a computer is displaying a chemistry experiment and arithmetic problems that students are trying to solve. Once again, we see another aspect of education, especially for school children: homework. As we'll analyze in the next slides, if there's one thing that seems to be inscribed in our grade school education, it is the prevalence of homework. As futurists of the mid-20th century were greatly influenced by the idea of computers, it's unsurprising that they would use this technology to help students be more efficient in homework solving. Computers are going to be able to save the average student time and would even replace the need for teachers in education. A third homework helper was the answer machine. The answer machine is something like Google in the 1960s. You would type a question and an answer would appear on the TV in front of you. Although this idea was a prediction of the world to come, the answer machine was still subjected to its time period. For example, the student would type the question on a typewriter, a common technology of that time. As we've seen so far, society has shaped technology in education, but technology also shapes education. For example, the radio book combined the classroom textbook and radio to form what we now call audiobooks. From the auto tutor to the homework machine to the radio book, futurists believed technology was the solution to any 20th century educational problem. Now let's go more in depth with a technology that many were convinced was going to affect education: TVs. In the 1930s, universities envisioned both radio and television as mediums to reach a broad audience with educational programming. Considering that many people still lived in the rural US, this would have had an immense advantage. But things didn't go according to plan. Broadcasting costs increased, audiences diminished, and professors demonstrated that teaching in the lecture hall was not the same thing as teaching through television. These problems forced radio stations to unfavorable broadcast times and frequencies, which sent most educational programs to the gutters. One success story of educational television programming was Dr. C.C. Clark's 1938 broadcast to 200 New York University students using 15 television sets. But technology can't be separated from social context, and it was World War II that disrupted any furthering of educational television for decades. Eventually, it became known as the idiot box, but educational television was a possible reality of the 1930s. In 1937, a Columbia University educator predicted that parents wouldn't send their children to school until they are 10 years old. But school was seen both as a learning environment and as a place to leave your children. It was in this era that ideas like kindergarten became relevant in the context of education, also that mothers could get a little extra freedom from their children. In 1920, a column from the Evening Gazette predicted that in the future, history was not going to be something memorized out of books. Instead, with moving pictures, it was going to be visualized and made real to a learner. This is an interesting thought to consider, as it is important to recognize the way people in the past analyzed their own history to predict their own futures. The idea of moving pictures taking over education opened up an entirely new discussion on how students learned. Is it easier to learn through movies? Is it better? Do students retain more information? Or is the best way to learn through reading? These theoretical discussions are still being carried out to this day. But education in the future doesn't always have to be affected by technology. Some futurists predicted that it wasn't necessarily technology that would change education in the future, but rather the need for more efficient language. In 1900, John Alfred Watkins Jr. predicted that the letters C, X, and Q would be abandoned because it was unnecessary, and that English would be a language of condensed words expressing condensed ideas. Later predictions of the 20th century show the float schools of 1982. Presumably influenced by space travel technology, the float school of tomorrow would allow any class to be taught in the sky, creating real-life adventures. It is curious to note that futurists have gone to great lengths to determine the location and physical space of education, but in today's world we use the same setup as we did 100 years ago. In What May Happen in the Next 100 Years, published in 1900, another idealistic view of the future was presented in which every man and woman would have a free university education. Children would study simplified English, the poor would receive many benefits to be able to attend school, and etiquette and housekeeping would be important studies in public schools. In this video, we have seen that predictions of education in the future are influenced by many factors, not limited to cultural and social surroundings. Furthermore, where you study seems to be the most relevant question for futurists in terms of education. If you want to learn more about how people view the future in the past, visit paleofuture at paleofuture.com.